On my journey to discover the darkest Batman cartoons ever made, or darkest Batman cartoon episodes ever made, I came across Baby Doll. This is an interesting one because while some Batman villains don't need clown makeup, freeze guns, or superpowers to terrify you, sometimes the darkest villains are the ones who are broken in ways we can all relate to. That's kind of been the topic of a couple of these, but this specifically is what makes Baby Doll one of the darkest episodes in Batman animation for me. Because it's not just about monsters, it's about a woman trapped in a nightmare she cannot escape. The story begins with a mystery. Several actors from an old TV sitcom have been kidnapped. At first, it seems random, but soon we discover the culprit, Mary Doll, also known as Baby Doll. Mary suffers from a rare condition that prevents her body from physically aging. Despite being an adult, she looks like a little girl. And as a child, she starred on a hit TV sitcom where she was Baby Doll. But when the show ended, her fame disappeared. Her bitterness and obsession grew. Baby Doll kidnaps her old co-stars, forcing them to recreate scenes from the show. She wants to relive her glory days, and she's willing to scare or even harm anyone who gets in the way of stopping this, or stopping her from doing this. This is where Batman and Robin come in. Batman and Robin arrive to investigate, but Baby Doll isn't physically imposing at all. She doesn't need to be, though. Her desperation, her rage, and her unpredictability make her dangerous and frightening. The confrontation happens in a carnival funhouse, surrounded by distorted mirrors, where Batman faces her, and we see Baby Doll's psychological torment. The mirrors reflect what she should look like, a grown woman, highlighting the cruel reality of her life. And in the end, she collapses, whispering, "I would have made it. I really would have made it." Batman doesn't fight her physically in this one, actually. He stands silently, letting her tragedy speak for itself, which I found very interesting. Baby Doll is disturbing because it's not about crime, it's about identity and isolation and lost potential, which are all things that I'm sure many of you or many of us can relate to. Unlike most Batman villains, she doesn't want power or chaos. She just wants recognition and a life that she feels was stolen from her. Now, when this aired in 1994, Baby Doll stunned audiences, from what I gathered. Kids would have been confused, like me, but adults immediately recognized the tragedy, because she's not just a villain. She's a victim of circumstance and society's cruel disregard for people who don't fit the mold. A message or something, honestly, that is far ahead of its time, and I was surprised to see them delving into topics like this. I mean, this whole episode as a whole really is very interesting because it's kind of, I don't know how to explain it other than relatable in a sense. We all have moments in our lives that we look back on and we wish we did something differently, or we wish we took that job instead of this one, and we always feel like we have squandered potential. But this one is very interesting because it deals with, not just that aspect of life, but also, in my opinion, fear of change. Baby Doll wants to live in the past because those are her glory days. And while a lot of people can make fun of stuff like that, like Uncle Rico, for example, this is a very real and tragic thing for some people. Some people have a difficult time moving on from times that they felt were better. And honestly, I would be lying if I don't catch myself doing that from time to time, even with like my wife, for example, where it's like, I'm very happy right now, but I get reminiscent for the past, for the times when we first started dating, or when we were in this position in life. Like, it's interesting how the human brain works, I guess, because like I mentioned, I mean, I'm very happy right now, but I'm still catching myself sometimes looking back to the past and wondering, or just wishing, I guess, to kind of revisit that. So I could definitely relate to what Baby Doll is going through in this episode because she feels that and she is unhappy. So I'm sure it's even more so. I mean, I can't imagine living the life that she lives. It's hard enough, moving on from something when you create something or do something so successful when you're younger. I've heard that is a thing for child stars. I've heard that's why a lot of them go crazy. And I do wonder if that's like partially what the commentary on this episode was supposed to be as well. But not just that, her also having physical limitations in a world that does not really accept physical limitations is it's unfortunate to see because it's real. Like we know that this stuff happens. We know this is all accurate. And that's what makes it even more heartbreaking for me, at least, is like knowing, this girl, this show was all she had and it got canceled and no one ever really thought anything of it. But for her, it was basically the end of her life. I mean, this was everything for her. So it's very interesting seeing such a heartbreaking story unfold in a Batman cartoon, especially one that's, like I mentioned, mainly designed towards kids. It's directed towards children. So I just really like that they dived into these themes because even when I was a child, I didn't understand really what was going on in this episode, but it just felt disturbing. This one is one that really stuck out in my mind, mainly because of the visuals of Baby Doll as well. I mean, she's obviously her namesake. She lives up to it. She dresses herself up like a baby doll, and if you didn't know any better, you would think it is a baby doll. If this were something more supernatural-esque, you might even think it's like a possessed doll, like in the sense of Annabelle. But no, it's just a woman who has been dealt a bad card in life, and that's the thing about a lot of these Batman villains and a lot of these stories that I've been covering that I've noticed. I believe this will be my 5th video on this, if depending on what order you're watching them in. But either way, the thing I've noticed with his villains is that like most of them are just really misunderstood people or people that have been dealt a really shitty hand in life. And I think a lot of us can sympathize with that because, I mean, let's be honest, how many of us would be, I feel like a lot of people are just one bad day away from becoming something awful. And not that they're awful people, but think about it. All it takes is like one, I guess, fail swoop in the right area of a person's life, and it could cause them to snap. For some, it may be a spouse. Others, like this episode, it may be a career. It may be past trauma creeping up. There's a lot of things that can turn people bad, and that's what I really connect with a lot of Batman villains for. Like, it's popular for a lot of people to say, oh, he has the best rogues gallery, and he definitely does. I think it's one of those things, sometimes people try to be different, so they'll be like, oh, I actually think this obscure hero has a better rogues gallery. But I'm going to be honest, guys, sometimes it's okay to have the popular opinion. It's okay to agree with the majority. And in this sense, I do, because Batman villains aren't just villains. They're not just maniacal. And while, don't get me wrong, some of them are, I would say more than half of them are just tragic stories who didn't really have seemingly another choice. At least to them, it looks that way. So it's very interesting to see, Batman the Animated Series dive into this. This is a show I've loved since I was a kid, so getting to do these is nice because it gives me another layer, another reason to love this show even more, which I love. So if you did stick around, I really do appreciate listening to what I had to say about this. Hopefully you got something out of it. Hopefully you agreed. If you did not agree, let me know down below why, and let me know if you have any darker Batman episodes or cartoons in mind that I have not covered yet. I'd be happy to cover them. I am looking into some other, darker cartoon episodes. I mean, this is before a time, guys, where, this is like before Invincible, where it was like popular to have crude or like darker superhero animations, or even darker superheroes in general. So this isn't exactly on the scale of Invincible, but it is, in a different sense, it's actually a little bit darker and a little bit more messed up. So Let me know what you guys thought down below. I appreciate you sticking along for this ride if you did. And until next time, I'll catch you guys in the next one.